I've been wanting to share this story for a while, and my therapist encourages me to talk about my past, so here goes. This is about my mother, who I haven't seen since she was arrested for attempted murder, but I'll get to that part later. I was diagnosed with autism when I was 9. My mother had two very different reactions to this news. In public, she'd brag about me constantly. Whenever other parents would mention their children's achievements, my mother would immediately one-up them by bringing up my autism along with my accomplishments. If someone mentioned their kid playing piano, she'd boast about how her autistic daughter could play both violin and piano. When parents talked about their children's reading levels, she'd brag about how her autistic daughter had skipped a grade. She'd use my diagnosis to overshadow other parents' pride at every opportunity. But behind closed doors, I was just that kid that would amount to nothing in her words. One day, when I was still 9, I went down to the kitchen where my mother was entertaining some friends. There were 4 women, all in their 20s, sitting around our kitchen table. I tried to be polite and say hello to everyone, but I stumbled over one woman's name it was difficult for me to pronounce. Instead of helping me or just moving on, they all started laughing. Not just gentle laughter. They were openly mocking a 9-year-old child. One of the women asked my mother how she ended up with a daughter like me. My mother just laughed and blamed it on my father's DNA. They kept laughing as I started to stutter and cry. I was so angry and hurt that I grabbed my glass and threw it at my mother. It missed, sailing over her head. The room went dead silent. My mother grabbed me by my collar and slapped me hard across the face. Then she dragged me upstairs by my hair, away from her friends, so she could beat me properly without witnesses. The slaps turned into punches, and when I fell, she kicked me in the stomach. After she was done, she just washed my blood off her hands and went back downstairs to continue her afternoon with her friends. I lay there crying in pain for hours until our gardener and my nanny found me. They finally convinced my mother to take me to the hospital, where they discovered she had broken my arm and bruised my ribs. At the hospital, my mother spun a story about me falling off the balcony. When she prompted me to confirm her story, I weakly nodded and agreed that I had fallen. The nanny and gardener knew the truth, but they couldn't help. My nanny was on a work visa, and the gardener was undocumented. My mother had already gotten other household staff arrested with false accusations before. She was a master manipulator who could cry on command and make anyone believe her stories. My mother's abuse continued for years, but I made sure to protect my younger siblings from it. I would deliberately provoke her when she started getting angry at them, making myself the target instead. Eventually, as I got older and stronger, I started fighting back when she hit me. That's when she finally stopped, at least the physical abuse. But the story doesn't end there. A few months ago, my mother was finally arrested. She had tried to kill me, actually tried to end my life. I won't go into the details, but let's just say she didn't succeed because she didn't count on me fighting back or having security cameras installed in my home. When the police arrived, she tried her usual crying routine, sobbing to the officers about how I was troubled since my diagnosis and trying to frame her. But the officers simply told her that they had the entire incident on video. They arrested her on the spot. The trial was quick. The evidence was overwhelming. Now she is serving a long sentence, and I'm finally free. I'm in therapy, working through my fears and trauma. My siblings are safe, my child is safe, and that woman will never hurt any of us again. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about how things turned out for her. I don't. She had decades to change, to be better, to actually be a mother. Instead, she chose violence and manipulation every single time. I've been working in the deli department of a major grocery store for about 5 years now. I started as a line cook and worked my way up to second manager, mostly because I'm really good with difficult customers. I didn't always want to work in food service. I actually tried my hand at stand-up comedy for a while, but that didn't pan out. Still, my sense of humor helps me deal with the daily chaos of retail. Our department is huge, running along the entire west wall of the store. We've got everything from sandwiches to hot food cases, and we share space with some independent vendors who run the sushi and Chinese food stations. They're a lovely Burmese family who've been here longer than I have, and we've got a great working relationship even though we're technically separate businesses. This story takes place during the early days of the pandemic when everyone was losing their minds over toilet paper. I was in the back kitchen doing my usual thing of hiding from customer service duties unless absolutely necessary when I heard a commotion up front. I went up to help and asked the woman how I could assist her. She immediately demanded a two-item combo with half rice, half chow mein, peppered beef, and orange chicken. I gestured to the Chinese food vendor and told her he would help her with that order. She refused, insisting that I serve her instead. I tried explaining that we were separate departments, but she kept cutting me off. Then she started using racial slurs, saying she didn't want the vendor touching her food, and demanding I serve her instead. At this point, I called for my manager over the intercom. He's this massive Samoan guy who usually has a pretty good handle on difficult situations. He showed up while she was still spewing racial slurs and tried to calm her down. When she wouldn't stop, he told her she needed to leave the premises. She responded by threatening us, saying her son would make us pay, that we'd all be fired, and that she was going to sue the whole store. When she was being escorted out by my manager, I couldn't resist one final jab. Using my best customer service voice, I called out to thank her for shopping with us and asked her to please come again. I got some good laughs from the other customers, and even my manager had to fight back a smile. The rest of the day went pretty normally until about 9 p.m. when I was mopping the floors after closing. Suddenly, I heard someone shout at me. I looked up to see this massive guy, easily 6 feet 5 and built like a brick wall, with face tattoos that screamed, "Don't mess with me." I'm 6'3" but skinny as a rail, and I've never been in a fight in my life. He started yelling, asking if I was the one who had disrespected his mother. I was confused at first, not understanding what he meant. He kept shouting about his mother, getting more and more aggressive. Before I could process what was happening, he vaulted over the sandwich counter to get at me. Now, here's where it gets good. I was in the middle of mopping, and our floors get incredibly slippery when wet. The moment his feet hit the wet floor, he went down like a sack of potatoes, cracking his head on the tile. I just stood there holding my deck brush like a weapon while one of my co-workers called 911. The guy was lying motionless in a puddle of soapy water mixed with blood from his head wound. The paramedics and police showed up within minutes. Turns out this guy had multiple warrants in several states. The whole thing went to court, where his mother testified and managed to use racial slurs every other sentence, even in front of the judge. Thanks to my union, I got paid for all the time I spent giving depositions and testifying, plus 3 days off. The son ended up facing charges not just for the attempted assault, but also for his outstanding warrants. The mother got banned from the store permanently, and I got a reputation for having the best timing with customer service phrases. The Chinese food vendors still work there, and we all had a good laugh about it later, though we made sure to keep the floors extra dry during business hours after that. The district attorney's office sent me a Christmas card that year, probably because I drove their head prosecutor crazy during my deposition by following his assistant's advice too literally. They told me to say I don't know to specific questions about conversations so they could legally lead me through the testimony. But I guess nobody told the boss that was the plan. I was always a quiet kid in middle school, focused on my studies and getting straight A's. I wasn't the type to cause trouble, but life had other plans when I was 13. My best friend was going through hell because of these 3 boys who thought they owned the school. My best friend had it the worst. She was born with severely bowed legs that made walking difficult, so bad that she eventually needed surgery to prevent spinal problems. She was really skinny, had wild, bushy hair that she couldn't tame, and was painfully shy. Her home life wasn't great either. She was the least favorite of 6 kids, and her mom struggled with mental illness. Seeing her hurt day after day made my blood boil. These 3 boys were like a pack of wolves. Their leader was the worst. He'd mock my friend's walk, make cruel jokes about her hair, and deliberately bump into her in the hallways. His two sidekicks would laugh and join in, making her life miserable. They bothered other girls too, but they really had it out for her. One day, I overheard a conversation between teachers that changed everything. The three boys were on their last warning. One more detention, and they'd be expelled mid-year. That's when I decided enough was enough. I might have been shy, but I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly how to play this. For the leader, I waited until we had an important essay exam. He was sitting right behind me, probably planning his next cruel joke. I wrote my essay, making sure it was perfect as usual. Then, when no one was looking, I crumpled it up and threw it out the window. I immediately stood up and told the teacher that the boy behind me had grabbed my essay and thrown it out the window. For once, he was caught off guard. He tried to defend himself, insisting he hadn't done anything and that I was lying. When the teacher asked me if this was true, I doubled down and said I had seen him reach over and grab it, adding that he was always picking on me and my friends. They sent someone to retrieve my crumpled essay from outside. In the principal's office, I kept my story straight. I was the perfect student. Why would I lie? The principal had no reason to doubt me, and the bully's track record spoke for itself. He was expelled that day. The second bully was next. There was this metal canopy near the playground that was already unstable from recent rain. I waited until the area was empty, then shook the pole until the whole thing came down. My friends and I immediately ran to the teachers. I told them we had seen him shaking the canopy until it fell. My friends backed me up, with one saying he was trying to show off how strong he was, and the other adding that we were scared someone would get hurt. The second bully got expelled too. 2 down, 1 to go. But the third bully's story turned out different. His mother called my house one evening. I could hear him crying in the background as she spoke. She apologized profusely for her son's behavior, explaining that she had taken away his TV privileges and canceled his participation in their family vacation. She promised it would never happen again. I quietly accepted her apology. The third bully came back to school a changed person. He stopped hanging out with bad crowds and actually started being nice to people. Years later, we even became friends on social media, and he's turned into a decent person. Now I'm much calmer and more forgiving. But at 13, pushed into a corner and watching my best friend suffer day after day, I discovered a side of myself I didn't know existed. I learned that sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous. We just need the right motivation to act. I'm not proud of how I handled things, but I can't say I regret it either. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, especially when you're 13 and the world seems stacked against you. The first 2 bullies never bothered anyone at our school again, and the third one learned his lesson the right way. Mission accomplished. I'm a high school teacher, and after a long Monday of dealing with teenage drama, all I wanted was to grab some groceries and head home. My local grocery store is usually packed around 4 p.m. when everyone's getting off work, but I had no choice since I needed to prepare dinner for my visiting in-laws. I've been patiently circling the parking lot for about 10 minutes, keeping an eye out for anyone leaving. That's when I spotted someone loading their trunk with groceries. I pulled up at a reasonable distance, put my turn signal on, and waited. When they started backing out, this massive white Range Rover came speeding around the corner and planted itself directly behind the car that was leaving, blocking both lanes of traffic. The Range Rover driver could clearly see my turn signal, and I'd been waiting there first. Still, I tried to keep my cool. Maybe they hadn't noticed me, but when the spot opened up, the Range Rover just sat there, not moving. After about 30 seconds of complete gridlock, with cars honking behind us, I carefully inched forward toward the empty spot. That's when all hell broke loose. The Range Rover's door flew open, and out stormed this woman in workout clothes and massive sunglasses. She walked straight up to my window, gesturing wildly for me to roll it down. When I asked if I could help her, she immediately started yelling about how I dared to steal her spot, insisting she was waiting there first. I explained that I had actually been waiting with my turn signal on before she arrived. She got even more aggressive, demanding I back up and claiming her children were waiting in her car. I looked at her children in the car. The Range Rover was empty. I pointed this out to her and told her she was blocking traffic, suggesting she either take the spot or move along. That's when she pulled out her phone and threatened to record everything. She warned me that everyone would see how I was harassing a single mother. She started walking around my car, narrating to her phone camera, making up a story about how I was an aggressive driver trying to intimidate her, and claiming she'd been waiting there for 20 minutes with her kids. At this point, a line of cars had formed behind us, and people were starting to honk and yell. I took out my own phone and called the store's security number, which was posted on signs around the lot. I explained to them that someone was blocking traffic, refusing to move, and making false accusations while filming me without consent. The security guard arrived within minutes. He was a tall man in his 50s who looked like he'd seen it all. When he asked what the problem was, Karen immediately launched into her story about me trying to steal her spot and harassing her. I explained that I was there first with my turn signal on and mentioned that she had come speeding in to block traffic. I suggested they check the security footage to verify everything. The security guard told her to move her vehicle since she was creating a traffic hazard. She refused, threatening us with her supposedly important lawyer husband. When the guard mentioned checking the security cameras, her confidence visibly wavered, but she still tried to argue, bragging about being a loyal customer who spent thousands at the store. The guard gave her two options: move immediately or have her car towed. She started yelling about discrimination and threatened to sue the entire store. It wasn't until the security guard took out his radio and started calling for a tow truck that she finally gave up. She jumped back in her Range Rover and sped off, but not before shouting threats about her lawyer. I got my spot. But apparently, Karen had posted her video on social media, claiming she was attacked in the parking lot. It backfired spectacularly when the store released their security footage showing her aggressive behavior. Local news picked up the story as an example of parking rage gone wrong, and Karen's video became a cautionary tale about entitled behavior. A week later, I saw her trying to shop at the store, wearing a big hat and sunglasses as a disguise. The security guard recognized her immediately and turned her away. She has to drive an extra 20 minutes to shop at a different location now, all because she couldn't wait her turn for a parking spot.